Good evening. My name is Gary Darnielle. I'm a Salem hearings official. For the record, it's 5:30 on February 25th, 2026. This evening, we have two hearings on our docket. First hearing concerns an application for a conditional use permit for a short-term rental on property zone single-family residential located at 930 Winter Street Northeast. The applicant is Heather Feeney, and this is case number CU 26-02. The second hearing is also an application for a conditional use permit for a short-term rental on property zoned single-family residential. The location of the property is at 5175 Fox Haven Court Southeast. The applicant is Jesus Ivan Bustamante Lua, correct?
Yes.
Close anyway. And this is case number CU 2603. The approval criteria in both of these cases can be found in section 240.005 capital D sub 1 through 3 of the Salem Revised Code. And the staff will go into more detail about those criteria. Before we begin the hearings this evening, I'd like to explain some of the procedures that we follow and attach to the hearings. We can characterize the hearings as being quasi-judicial and de novo. By quasi-judicial, that means certain due process rights attach, such as the right of notice of the hearing, the right to testify, the right to an impartial decision maker, and the right to a final written decision that's based on findings of fact and conclusions of law. By de novo, that means new evidence can be accepted as long as it's relevant to the approval criteria. The rules of evidence that you see in circuit courts don't apply here. We're a little more flexible. Evidence that is admissible is of the quality that is commonly relied upon by a prudent person conducting their normal, serious daily affairs. The type of evidence that I exclude is testimony that's not material, relevant to the approval criteria, or overly argumentative or repetitive. Testimony, arguments, and evidence should be addressed to the approval criteria that's listed in the staff report and discussed, or other criteria that you may feel is relevant to these proceedings. It's important to note that you need to raise procedural or substantive issues at this hearing, or if my decision is appealed to the Planning Commission, in order to preserve your right to raise those issues on appeal to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals. When you raise these issues, they need to be with a sufficient amount of clarity and specificity to allow parties to understand the nature of your issue, ability to comment if necessary. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval, again, with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue, will preclude inaction for damages before the circuit court. Burden of proof on each fact or position lies with the person that raised that fact or position. The ultimate burden of persuasion lies with the applicant to show by a preponderance of the evidence that all approval criteria have been met. The record in these matters consists of the application and supplemental materials submitted by the applicant, the staff report, written and oral testimony we received at this hearing, and if the record is held open, written testimony that's received open record period. If you have some question whether or not your evidence is in the record, make sure you make a formal presentation of that evidence to the hearings official this evening. You have the right to request that the record be held open an additional 7 days. You don't have to give a reason for that request, but you do need to make that request before the hearing is closed. Now, if the record is held open and new evidence is presented during the period, then an additional period of time will be the record will be held open for an additional period of time, allow parties to respond to the new evidence. Ultimately, the applicant gets the last word of summary and rebuttal. But again, during that period, a new evidence may be introduced. You also have the right to request a continuance of the hearing. That is extending this hearing to another date. That decision is discretionary with the hearings official. You need to explain and convince me why merely holding the record open a certain period of time isn't adequate to address your concern or your the testimony we received tonight is recorded, and I ask people who wish to testify to use the podium to my left. And as a prelude to your testimony, please give us your name for our record. Also, if you're not the applicant and you wish a copy of my decision mailed to you, we have a sign-up sheet in the back of the room. You can sign that anytime before we turn off the lights. In terms of the order of presentation, we'll begin with the staff report. And after the staff report, there'll be an opportunity for the applicant to testify in support of the application. Then others who wish to testify in support of the application. Following that testimony, if there's a representative of the neighborhood association that's applicable, they'll have an opportunity to testify. And then others who wish to testify in opposition may do so. And then finally, if you're not sure you're in favor of or opposed to, like to ask a question or make a statement, there'll be an opportunity at that time for you. At the conclusion of all that testimony, I'll turn to staff and see if they wish to address any issues or questions that have been raised. Then finally, there'll be an opportunity for final summary or rebuttal by the applicant. Any person who has standing, and that's basically they turned in testimony, either orally or in writing, has standing to appeal my decision to the Planning Commission. You need to do so within 15 days of the date notice of the written decision is mailed. The appeal before the Planning Commission is de novo. That means you can raise new issues of law and fact, and new parties may participate. The Salem Code requires that the decision maker in these matters be impartial. So I'll take that opportunity to declare that I've had no ex-parte contacts or have no actual or potential conflicts of interest. A ex-parte contact is a communication with the decision maker that occurs outside this public venue. It occurs with a party, basically, and provides evidence or testimony that is substantive and related to the matter at hand. If that happens, I have to declare that communication and make a declaration of whether it has made me, that's the case, I have to step down. Conflicts of interest have to do with whether or not my decision would financially benefit myself, a family member, or a business I'm associated with, or it would prevent a financial detriment to myself, a family member, or a business I'm associated with. Indicated I have no ex-parte contacts, nor do I have any actual potential conflicts of interest. At this time, there's an opportunity for the public to challenge my impartiality, and you retain that option throughout the process. Hearing no challenges, I'd like to ask for the staff report.
Great. Hi, I'm Caroline DeBruin, and we're here to talk about conditional use case CU 26 at 930 Winter Street Northeast. And before I begin, I'd like to request that this presentation, staff report, and all comments received be submitted into the record. This is a request for conditional use permit for a short-term rental within an existing single-family dwelling. The property is located in the Grant Neighborhood Association. It is surrounded by other single-family residential zoned properties. However, there are a couple of multifamily residential zoned properties and PM or Capital Mall zoned properties just to the south. So looking at the vicinity map, you can see that it's sort of at the edge of a lower density single-family residential neighborhood. And there's no proposed exterior changes or modifications to the property. The short-term rental will be housed in an existing 2-bedroom single-story dwelling. Looking at the approval criteria for a conditional use permit, the first one states that the proposed use is allowed as a conditional use in the RS zone. Short-term rentals are permitted as conditional use in the RS zone. Second, the reasonably likely adverse impacts of the use on the immediate neighborhood can be minimized by the imposition of conditions. Staff have recommended a number of conditions to limit the adverse impacts on the surrounding neighborhood, including maximum occupancy, lodging uses only, quiet hours, and these conditions are inspired by the accessory short-term rental special use items, which help mitigate those impacts. And then finally, the proposed use will be reasonably compatible with and have minimal impact on the livability or appropriate development of the surrounding property. The proposed use will be similar to existing single-family uses with the condition. So in essence, this property will function or operate as any other single-family home in the neighborhood. 5 conditions of approval. First one states that or limits the maximum number of guests to 4. And then for the purposes of these conditions, children under age of 12 are not counted. Second, the short-term rental shall be rented to only one group of guests at a time, so no concurrent booking. Third, the short-term rental shall be limited to the provision of lodging, no other activities, fundraising, commercial activities, gatherings, etc. would be permitted. And then finally, fourth, to clarify, there was a discrepancy with this condition. How it was worded in the staff report. So condition 4 should be as follows. The short-term rental shall not generate noise beyond the property between the hours of 10 and 8 a.m. Finally, condition 5 requires that bicycle parking spaces be provided for the short-term rental and shall be developed in conformance with the applicable bicycle outlined in SRC 806. During the public comment period, no comments were received from any public agency, the neighborhood association, or any members of the public. However, after the public comment period ended, 3 comments were received from the applicant, the neighborhood association, public, in support of the application, but in opposition to condition 5, which is the short-term bicycle parking requirements. Minimum bicycle parking requirements are provided and required for all uses under FMC Chapter 806, and they're applied across the city. Although we do understand that bicycle parking might not be the ideal fit for this situation. Ultimately, though, the conditional use permit application within the application staff is required to ensure that all applicable code criteria are met. The only mechanism by which to adjust a code requirement is through an adjustment application, which is designed for situations like this. So as such, we have proposed to change the wording of condition 5 to allow the applicant to seek an
That again?
louder. Sorry, yeah, we would like to propose that the wording of condition 5 is altered so that the applicant can seek an adjustment to that standard.
Have the right to do that anyway.
Correct. They do have the right to do that, but it's common practice for our division to make it clear to applicants that it's either or, and that's how we've written conditions routinely throughout the time I've been here. So it's just the clarification so that they don't feel like they don't have the option. It is a speed limit condition. I understand.
I want to make it clear that it's,
Staff recommends that the conditional use permit is approved with that amended wording to make it clear as the
does the dwelling have a garage,
no,
parking?
no off-street vehicle parking at the property.
Where do people park now?
I would defer to the applicant to.
Okay. Now I would like to, from the applicant, if the applicant wishes to testify.
All right, my husband, we're co-applicants, joins me.
You all right with that?
There's each other as you
Okay, my
testify.
name is Heather Feeney. This is my husband, Dave Feeney. We are the owners. We are also the neighbors on the property right next door. We own the property and run it as one, even though it's two tax lots. So
You live next door.
Correct.
quite next door. Our bedroom headboards are quite close to this residential.
More details.
Okay. So with that, I am appealing, or I'll just read my statement, and then I am appealing for flexibility, adaptability, and some reasonableness as we look at condition 5 today. But I'd like to request that the modification, that there be a modification to the conditional use permit, or the what was suggested by Ms. DeBune, who has done a fantastic job putting up with my questions and my extra frustrations in the process, and consider that we amend the 5th condition before it's passed, or before the granting of the continual use permit. As the property owner requesting it, I'm supportive of this permit with the conditions 1 through 4, which support the rules that are currently in place and indeed reduce any negative impacts that CU 2602 might have on our neighbors. I'm requesting that condition 5 be removed. As a neighbor directly south of the property, I do not believe that this condition reduces the negative impacts on our neighbors or the people around us. In fact, I believe that it adversely impacts our neighborhood. My concerns are primarily and chiefly, number 1, the safety. Access granted for bike parking is a huge risk, as it is an advertisement to our transient neighbors to enter the property. Bicycles, even locked, left out in our neighborhood, attract uninvited people to come onto the property and look for unsecured items. Leaving bikes out is simply not something that we do in our neighborhood. Even properly locked bikes end up with missing parts when left out. We do not personally leave our bikes out even for a few minutes, and certainly not while we sleep. Or specifically, a bike park space, if installed, would have to have signage that asks our guests not to use the bike parking that condition 5 supports. The liability for us as property owners and the house would be too great. The 4-foot access with no stairs, lifting that's required in this permit, it's quite involved, is contrary to what we're doing, which is trying to reduce access to this little part of our property where uninvited guests seem to like to come in and explore when we sleep or away. The back of the property is intentionally left without access to the alley to reduce theft and camping. Not all of the subject property right now is available to guests, as it is our personal space. Behind the cottage is one of those places. My second concern has to do with digging or excavating to make a ramp and a bike path that is a hard surface to which racks can be secured, and a 4-foot path to this bike parking space. And I'm concerned that it will damage the enormous trees and old growth for which this is named the Three Pines Cottage. Unhealthy or damaged trees not only put our property at risk, but also our neighbors' homes. They're 200+ foot old growth historical trees in our neighborhood that that we try to keep healthy so they don't lose branches on to our neighbor's property. The third reason is less about code, but does speak to our neighbors, and that is that the property is in a historical neighborhood. And the Grant neighborhood, we work to maintain the charm and aesthetics of our neighborhood. This property is maintained and kept in a manner that supports the value and ownership of our Grant neighborhood. And the proposed bike parking would need to go up in the middle of a tiny green space and landscape that is really actually my personal garden. Any space, regardless of the size, would be placed on this property is mismatched to the care and regard of the home in this area. I would add that in conversations with Ms. June, she pointed out that there was ways to put 75% of the bike parking inside of the cottage. The cottage is listed at 800 square feet, but if you look, there's actually a little parts of the this by this, because it's pieced together, that makes it closer to 700 square feet. And putting a bike rack inside the house that is larger than the beds that we actually can fit in the bedrooms doesn't seem practical, nor is it how we would want to decorate the inside. We do have some movable bike rack that we put up in a laundry space, but it has to be movable so that you can get to the washing machine and dryer. In conclusion, please note that the bike part is for 4 bikes with clearance and access requirements. The code does not mitigate or lessen the impacts of the permit to rent for less than 30 days on our neighbor. In fact, it may have a greater impact. And so I request that you amend the condition number 5 to not require a bike path on this property.
But tell me about parking. People will be parking on Winter Street.
Our guests get 1 guest pass and they park at street parking. So we have a guest parking pass that we pay for, and we allow them to use that.
So what's parking like on Winter?
What's it like?
Are there a lot of spaces available?
Plenty of spaces.
Haven't to date. I mean, that's where we have to park as well. We have a 1-car garage that I can put my car in, but my husband puts his car on the street. And we vie for parking spaces with our neighbor.
But we never really have an issue of not having space to park.
It may be of note that we checked with code prior to the, I think it was called the Climate Friendly Equitable Communities Act in 2023. And that passed after we had checked on codes and standards. So we weren't actually aware of this when we started renting to guests.
What experience do you have with short-term rentals? I assume you were operating a similar use before the city said you had to get a conditional use.
Yes.
How long have you done that?
We started opening this up in 2023.
Had any problems with your guests?
In terms of,
Issues, let's say violating the conditions that,
oh, no. And in more particular, is it, if the question applies to with bicycles, as Heather pointed out, as I'll mention it in mine, we have an indoor parking for bicycles. We have had guests that have brought in their high-end bicycles for the triathlon. And they've been very comfortable and have actually complimented us for having the space inside the house to keep the bikes warm, keep them dry, and keep them safe.
your house.
It's not our house, in the
In the
cottages.
cottage.
In the cottage.
It's a movable, it's not fixed to the ground, and it doesn't match the specifications of the code requirement.
How do you screen your guests by some manner?
We use Airbnb, VRBO, and so we are able to accept or decline based on their past records as renters. And then notably why this venture started is I have a son that lives in Germany that brings the grandkids home. So it's nice to have a place for him to come and bring the kiddos, as well as family is out in Omaha. And so having a place for mom and dad in their 80s to come and be with us. So it's a filler for the time when we don't have it used as our guest home.
Do you have any more questions? Thank you.
I was just gonna interject, I'm sorry. Interject with the comment or what I would submit as a neighbor, as an owner next, where a lot of it is duplicate or similar to what we have in concerns with the condition. But as the owner and adjacent neighbor to the property located at 930 Winter Street Northeast, subject to the conditional use number CU 26-02, I am in agreement with the staff report for the approval of the conditional use permit. The use of the property as a short-term rental does not cause an adverse impact on the neighborhood. However, I must voice my concern and therefore object to condition 5 of the CU 26-02 staff report. While conditions 1 through 4 are consistent with maintaining the integrity of the neighborhood, condition 5 in contrast is detrimental to the neighborhood in general and to 930 Winter Street Northeast in particular. Live in a beautiful historic neighborhood. Unfortunately, our neighborhood is not immune from crime. Personally, we have experienced more than a couple break-ins, including our locked cars being vandalized, whether parked on the street or on our driveway or even in the garage. And additionally, other belongings have been stolen or damaged from outside our home. Acquiring the property in question to provide outside bicycle parking will attract more criminal activity to our neighborhood, jeopardizing property belonging to short-term guests of the outside parking is unsuitable under the circumstances. The home is small at approximately 850 square feet. Any space designated for such parking, regardless of size, will interfere with the aesthetics of the property. Mismatched with the existing yard layout, the parking area will be a blot on the property, reducing property values. Furthermore, bicycle parking developed on the property would be anomalous to the other homes in the neighborhood, creating an adverse impact on the neighborhood. Efforts have been made to accommodate our guests and their bicycles at the property. The portable bike stand exists in the laundry. In this manner, bikes are safe, they are dry, and out of the way from the living areas of the home. In summary, I'm in agreement with the approval of the conditional use permit without condition 5. Any further questions?
Pardon?
Any further questions for us?
There are others who wish to testify in support of the application.
Representing the neighborhood association, but I understand I go after others, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, looks like you're on.
May use the mic. It's been great. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Sam Skillern. I'm the chair of the Grant Neighborhood Association. I live at 1255 Cottage Street Northeast. And we are we're a neighborhood who supports. We support this application. We're very unified in supporting one another in the neighborhood. We're very supportive of the city and the city staff. We've worked really well together on a number of projects. One of our frustrations has been over the years, so this is nothing new, but when notices come out, we mostly don't have time for our whole board to take action on things like this. We received the hearing notice on February 3rd. Our meeting was on February 5th. On the 19th, the staff report came out, and that's when we started going, whoa, there's some stuff here we want to speak to. Our next meeting is until March 5th. And so this is not a criticism, but I want to get on record that if there's a way, and we've been on record before, if there's any way that these things can be staggered so that neighborhood associations have proper time to, so you're hearing from me, having talked to our land use chair, Aaron Turpening, having talked to our vice chair and our secretary. So this is the input that we're able to give, but we feel a little uncomfortable that we can't speak with formality, just due to the fact that these dates just sometimes don't work out. there were letters submitted from several neighbors. Were they able to be in the record even though apparently they came in a little bit late? I see them printed, so, okay, thank you very much. So I will not read my statement that's in the writing, but I will reference some code stuff. I think that's germane according to the parameters that the hearing examiner offered. I went on a search to find stuff that we could reference, and wading through the code is you guys do it all the time, and we love and respect how you understand and are fluent in it. I found several references to this in something called ordinance number 723, a little bit in SRC chapter 111. The two most germane quotations that I was able to find came from the City of Salem bicycle parking guidelines. I don't see an SRC designation, but this covers the construction of new property, which this isn't, but it does say bicycle parking may not be necessary for very small projects such as single family or duplexes. There was another reference that was tied to SRC chapter 806. And again, I looked in the what's on the website, and I didn't find this, but in other sources, this quotation was available referencing SRC chapter 806. In Salem, Oregon, single-family houses used as short-term rentals generally do not require the installation of bike racks. Now, I don't know if there's some superseding code that overlaps this, but if there is, these things that are findable by Google, somehow we need to have those go away. But that's what I was able to find in a good faith, earnest search of the code. My final comment will be relevant to the concerns in the letters and that others have expressed about the trees. We're wondering if the arborist, Mylan Davis, has been consulted relative to SRC 808 and SRC 86, which govern how tree roots and tree impacts are related. And so if there hasn't been a consult with Mylan and a visual inspection of these tall conifers, I don't believe they're historic trees. They haven't been, or heritage trees. They're not formally designated as heritage trees, but they're very sizable. And we would just want to make sure that the city was comfortable that putting in the bike pad, if that's required. Hopefully it won't be. I think it sounds like there's some possibility of that, but if there's any more thought about doing it, that the city would be consulted relative to those codes. So that's the testimony from Grant Neighborhood Association, and thank you for the opportunity.
Mr. Tiller, would you turn in your written comments?
Yes, so they were captured, and they're in the packet of letters. You mean the stuff I was citing?
Yeah, I'm interested in the citation to, is it the goals of?
Well, I got a lot of good chicken scratches on this. I'm happy to share it. It just, as I was Googling, I was looking for references to bike pads and short-term rentals. We know that accessory short-term rentals, they're automatically, they go through, and we get those notices all the time. In 25 years that I've been the chair, we get lots of notices about short-term rentals and accessory short-term rentals. I can't remember ever having this come up before. So I don't know if it's something like super new that is in a code. That's why I say I may have missed something, but my Google search didn't lead me to anything that specifically said they're required for single family. And quite the opposite. There were two references that they aren't required. So yeah, pretty. Thank you very much. And thank you.
Are there those who wish to testify in opposition to the application? Does anybody wish to offer testimony but not be identified as being in favor of or opposed to? Staff have any comments they wish to make at this time? The applicant wish to offer final summary testimony?
There.
Yep.
So in summary, I would request for a little bit more clarification about what's being changed referenced that the wording would be changed from what we have in the letter. So I don't know what that change is. My understanding is there is process. I read through the code, whether it's a variance or whether it's other things. My request to you as an impartial person is to look at maybe the reasonableness of not having to go through further process to look at the safety and perhaps waiving that final recommendation. And then I think on record, I would like to say that as a citizen that walked into the planning office, proud of myself, my checkbook to apply for a permit, the process has been convoluted to get here. And the surprise of finding the conditions and not knowing in advance, sitting at the desk and being told that it's an easy process, likely you don't need to meet with somebody beforehand, you have that waived and it goes through. It alluded to the fact that this was just simply the process to get a permit so I can pay more money. And now I'm thousands of dollars into a permit that we may not want to continue the usage if it requires certain things to our property. So just on the record saying that not once it got to this office, but in front of that, there was not anything. And reading the codes, in all of the applications and the months I spent trying to figure out the application process, I never came across this condition that might be imposed either. And so that, and just asking for the flexibility to look at the actual individual property as opposed to code over our neighborhood. And I would like to have it open so that we could get an estimate on the costs before we,
Want the record to be held open.
I would like it held open. Yes, please.
Normally do is we hold the record open for 21 days, 7 days for the applicant to submit additional information, 7 days for other parties, including the city, to respond, and then a final 7 days for you to have the last word, not new evidence, but a summary and rebuttal if necessary.
My thought is the timing of reading this condition on Thursday. I care for my parents. I have other, work full time. By the time I read it Thursday night and start trying to figure out, what 2 feet and how this goes and what it looks like, I haven't had time to have an impact to see if there's an arborist, to have somebody look at the property and say it could be here without adverse effects to the trees. And then primarily, I just plain don't want bicycles outside for a safety issue. It just is, I'm not going to use bad words, but it just doesn't make sense.
That concludes the hearing on CU 2602. And we'll move on to the next application, 2603, CU 2603. I'll bore you again with my information speech. We'll go right into the staff report.
Again, I'm Caroline DeBruin, here to discuss conditional use permit case CU 26-03 for 5175 Foxhaven Court Southeast. And again, before I begin, I'd like to request that this presentation, staff report, and all comments received be submitted.
Word.
This is a request for a conditional use permit for a short-term rental within an existing single-family dwelling. Subject property is in the South Gateway Neighborhood Association and is surrounded by other single-family residential zoned properties. Although there are a couple multifamily residential zoned properties to the northeast of and mixed use zoned properties about 3 blocks to the north. There are no exterior changes proposed or modifications to the exterior of the existing home. Short-term rental will be housed in the existing 6,995 square foot, 4-bedroom, 2-story dwelling. And it's also enhanced with a 440 square foot 2-car attached garage. Looking at the conditional use approval criteria, the first one states that the proposed use is allowed as a conditional use in the RS zone. Conditional use for short-term rental is allowed as conditional use within the zone. Second states that the reasonably likely adverse impacts of the use on the immediate neighborhood can be minimized through the imposition of conditions. Staff have recommended a number of conditions to help minimize these potential impacts, which are again inspired by the accessory short-term rental special use standards, which is permitted outright within the zone. And finally, the proposed use will be reasonably compatible with and have minimal impact on the livability or appropriate development of the surrounding property. With the imposition of the proposed conditions, the impact to the surrounding properties will be minimized. At the recommended conditions of approval, maximum number of, that should be 8 guests. Children under 12 don't count towards this total. Only one group of guests the home can only be rented to one group of guests at a time. Third, the use will be limited to lodging, so no commercial events, etc. Quiet hours between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m., which is in accordance with the city's noise ordinances. And then finally, that bicycle parking spaces meeting all the applicable development standards would be provided. No comments were received from any public agency or the neighborhood association. 2 comments were received from the members of the public during the public comment period. After the closure of the public comment period, several, I believe it was 6 comments were received from members of the public and the neighborhood. Parking, reduced safety. Staff report. With that, staff recommends that the conditional use permit
reiterate that my declaration of impartiality pertains to this hearing as well. Again, parties may challenge my impartiality through this hearing. The challenge is, I'd like to hear from the applicant.
Hi there, my name is Jesus Ivan Bustamante. It's my first time doing something like this, so sorry if I'm a little nervous. English is my first language, so if something is like a little no okay, please ask me, and then I can try to make more clear myself. Okay, so I'm trying to go for this permit. So something that always I've been thinking and learning through my experience in life is we have to learn from mistakes. We have to learn from different experiences. So then also using in the past Airbnb that gave me the understanding about how this is more affordable for families, for groups that are traveling to the state. So then life changed. Sometimes you are thinking that I'm gonna do this, but sometimes for politics, for communities, for everything, you have to readjust your plan, your initial plan. So that's why we have to came to do this, trying to get this house, this beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood into a Airbnb. So along with some friends that they have already this type of set up a business, they were giving us some guidance about this. So I was at the beginning ignoring a lot of things because there is a lot of information out there, and I'm not the best looking for information on the websites. So then I was just following all the data, all the advices from other friends that they have the same condition that I'm pursuing here. So actually there are 2 Airbnb houses next to the house where is this located, in a couple blocks away. So then everything's been going well. And then, so I will let you initiate with this. So mainly in the few months we were able to have this opportunity for different group of people. So the main topic for this is having like families, professionals traveling to the state, group of people. Like we have a fantastic experiences with family like coming from other states to see and meet with their family in Salem. Family coming from other cities in Salem to have like some competitions on the high schools. So some professionals like doing some minor projects here in for the Salem benefit that we were able to host. So then that is the main people that we are expecting. And students, we have some students that they were coming to do some practice, something like that with the Salem Hospital. So I learned that it's more common now these days, or maybe before. So I don't know a lot about Salem. I've been in this beautiful city almost about 6 years. Before that, I was living in California for 4 years. And before that, I was living in Mexico until I have the opportunity to be a resident by my wife and be here, trying to make the best for my community, for the city. So then, of course, we have only one like a really learning experience, because I don't want to say a bad experience. I would like to say it's a learning experience. So it's about how you are, what your approach to the problems, right? Or to the circumstances. So then in order to be aligned with Oregon mindset, to be more open about diversity, open to minorities, to every different people here, because I'm a Latino, and I understand how it feels when somebody's trying to reject you because your accent, or because you wasn't born how we look, how we talk, or because we speak a different language. So keeping that in mind, we initiate having a screen with the people who was requesting of the time for the house, right? So in last December, we have a particular case where a younger individual for a minority, he asked me for having the house. Obviously, I have to ask a couple questions like, what are your intention? What are you doing here? What do you need a house, in order to understand that it's for a good purpose. So he didn't have any background from Airbnb, but since I know how it felt to be judged because how I look, I accept to have the person. It was he violated the rules. He have an event, a party, look like something like that. So they created a mess, a disaster in the house. So obviously after that, we were feeling really down, because we were passing through. Right now, my community is passing for a lot of things. Even though I'm a legal alien here, you can be treated different. So then we have some condition on our family that we have to take care of that. So at the moment, we have a lot of things going around us. So that situation makes us to think about what we have to do with this. We have to continue with this. How can we improve if we do this with the neighborhood? Because our main intention is always respect others, keep the house, the neighborhood in the best condition, you know? So then later on, when we made some adjustments to try to prevent this from the future. So then we continue with that. And then later on, we have the visit from the compliance officer of Magaña to inform us that we need to get a permit. So that was something new. I understand I got the wrong advice from people who maybe they're not doing it exactly as they are supposed to do, you know? So then, because we were in the wrong understanding about what is the difference between being the city of Salem and belong to Marion County, from outside from the ceiling. So we have we were bombarded with a lot of different information. So then finally, when Dr. Magaña explained me hey, well, you want to continue with this, you have options. I mean, can you imagine having somebody in your door, enforcement, what's up? You know? So then he said, hey, look like you have this, so you can have it. In the meantime, you are meeting all these regulations, or you don't need to, you don't need a permit. You are like renting more than 30 days or like everybody does, you know, renting to use a house. So he explained me, and then we truly believe in order to keep the neighborhood in the best piece, it's like a short-term rental is the best in my experience. Because you may have one bad experience and you get rid of the people. And you get more like a more system in place to make sure that that is not happening again. So vice versa, I mean, we cannot pick our neighbors, right? Sometimes you can have a neighbor who was like not the best neighbor, having a bunch of cars on the street, having parties, having people smoking outside. That's what we know we are expecting. So then he explained us, we hold the place, because he said either or you can rent the place for a month by month, the whole year. So it's different, you don't need a permit. But when you are like for less than 30 days, you have to go through this process. So then he indicated me with Caroline, with the Celeb City, the Celeb, to do all of this process. We are really compromised with this. This process is not cheap. It's over 7,000. So I'm really compromised with this. I'm really compromised to make the best, to keep everything like in the best condition, the best shape. 7,000, over 7,000 for a working family. This is not easy. I'm not like just trying money. So I'm in debit. So I guess that shows that I'm compromised with this, that I really care about this. So then before now, after the experience, before allowing any guest, any person to even try to book anything with us, if this go back to the system, they have to have a 5-star review, no negative record or something like that. Also, again, now my questions to them is like a more high quality about like, tell me more about you. What are you doing? Or hold on. So then, have you read all these regulations? We have right here all these rules that we are implementing every single time. So in order to be here, a guest, you have to agree with all of this. Otherwise, this is not for you. This is not working for you. So in the most polite way, right? So then also we are clear about like no events, no parties are allowed. So far we have experiences with, again, just family meeting other family traveling to the state to meet, like to know Silverton Falls, the beach, the outlets. So that is the experiences that we are looking for. So we have a setup for like the quiet hours for the house. So I have to now fix that. There's 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. So originally it was 10 to 7 because I wasn't sure about that. So then also I'm ensured to keep a constant communication with them. So to make sure that you are in the path, you are in the line, and you don't get out of the line. So then also the house is only accepted for up to 7 individuals, no more than 7, because in order to keep like a low traffic of cars, a low people in the house, and most of the time they are like a 4 person. So the last thing when they were more is because they have kids that they were competing in Silverton High School. So then the property has a security cameras. Then now I'm improving more even since that day in order to make more have more sensitivity about like the noise, the moves, to make sure that nothing is outside of the normal or the whatever is permitted. So I have more additional cameras. Of course, everything is outside. I don't want to make any violation of something inside. Everything is outside. So then, and I'm making clear all the time on the publication. If you are violating, you are breaking any rule, you are done. There is no tolerance about something like that. So I do frequent visits to the neighborhood, not only because I love Costco. Costco is kind of behind. I mean, it's pretty practical. You gotta admit that. It's pretty practical. I have friends in the other neighborhood that are around it. So it's something that we are close in the neighborhood one other way.
So your friends in the neighborhood,
No. So for example, so right here is a neighborhood. There is like a street, other neighborhoods, like in the backwards, something like that. So I have friends in other neighborhoods where
right, who will watch the property
Yes. Okay.
and notify you if there's any problem.
Yeah, and they did it before. So sometimes, so I mean, I don't wanna sound like a cliche, right? Some of them, they are like a handyman, they have a construction companies. When we got a house and we were making like a nice and cozy for us before taking the decision to go in different direction, the same guys that are living in the surrounding neighborhoods, they were helping me. And then of course we're in communication all day, like, hey, how are you doing today? How's your day going? So then when this was open, like, can you swing by to see how everything looks? Just in case the security camera is not catching something. And they were didn't. So they are like, they are pretty supportive. I would like to say that every community, well, at least in the community that I grew up, is very supportive. So we take it, we chat over others. So then, also, I'm not far away from the neighborhood. So
About how far?
15 minutes for the most, 50 minutes. So then also I'm trying to go at least one time to Costco. Either or I'm not visiting the house, but when I'm there, like, well, let's go and give a round, you know? So just to pick up the mail or just to see how everything is looking. So may I take water? I'm sorry. I speak a lot. So regarding to the parking conditions, well, the parking concerns. So basically the house has room for four cars. So 2 in the driveway and 2 in the garage. And then also I was thinking for making addition to there is like a part of land. If everything goes well in the near future, I would like to expand the driveway just to make like more space if that is approved or something like that. Or I don't know, what I'm trying to say is like, I'm trying to do improvements in the future that benefit any parking issue, the neighborhood look, you know, is something that all the time I'm like looking for it. So my goal here is not try to bother my neighbors. So I mean, if I did, it's not on purpose. So I'm trying just to be easygoing, be helpful with everybody, try to respect others, help others if I can do that. So again, we got this house because we're gonna be moving into the house. So personal matters happen, and sometimes you have to be smart, have like a smart decision. We have 2 daughters. We were like picking the neighborhood #1 because it's a cozy neighborhood. And if you go to the backyard, you can see the park, the line of the gas and Costco. So then you can set up your time to go Costco. So then also I have friends that are close by. So it was going to be a good neighborhood. So the things happen like families first all the time. And we have to do this, not with the best information that we have at the moment, but we are trying and we are learning. And now again, I'm committed to do the best for my neighborhood. Again, 7,000 is no, I can maybe buy a Harley.
Okay, how long have you,
Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm passionate.
how long have you operated the house as a Airbnb, like? Have you operated out of this house before?
Yeah,
For
before,
how long?
so the house was since October. However, when I was in California living, so when I just arrived to United States, so I was working in a resort in California, so in Santa Cruz, California. So I was working as a operation supervisor. So my main duties is working with the housekeeping department and customer service relationship. So a resort is not like a hotel. A resort is like similar to Airbnb. When you are having different type of guests, some houses belong to the resort, and some others belong to private owners that they're using Airbnb. So then I spent 40 years working on that, learning more about like how to de-escalate situations, how to communicate very well when something is not happening correctly, when somebody is having like a wrong behavior, how to address with them. So at the beginning it was hard, right? Because with no experience, when you are trying to tell to a group of people like, hey guys, you cannot do the noise, please come down, because it's a resort, it's a business. You have to be a little more flexible. But all the time, I learned how to like talk to them to make them to think about like this is what we are expecting in this place. So that gave me a great expertise. Also, I was helping another friend with a similar thing. When he's like, hey, I'm in the city. Can you watch? Because you can share the Airbnb app to do a co-host. So then you can have like any type of help for other person just to assist you. Let's say I'm not in the city because something came up. So can you assist me? So it's how I learned now here in Oregon, and it's how I learned in the other side of the business how Airbnb works. Because before I was just using Airbnb as a affordable way to go to Disneyland, to some vacations, you know.
Put up your own list of rules.
Mhm.
And you're going to continue with those rules, which is a limitation of, what, 7 individuals?
Yes, the rules were in the app already. So like you cannot book this place. You are 8 people. You have to be 7 individuals. So then also is like you're gonna do this. You have to respect the following safety rules. Be quiet. Do this. Be this. Don't make. I have it right here. So the house is prepared for you. Watch out the property. Quiet hours. Don't bother the neighbors. No smoking. No parties. So then basically I'm gonna improve with all the recommendations that you guys gave me. I'm happy to improve more of this.
Okay, the condition of approval that is proposed by staff is that there's a limitation of 6 adults.
It was 6 or 7.
It was 8, sorry.
Excuse me?
It's 8. 'cause
It was a typo.
Yeah, I apologize.
So we're good there. Okay,
Yeah, so I mean, again, this is before, there's a picture from Google Pictures. So look at the house and look at the house after. So then we are committed to keep the neighborhood in peace. So to keep the house nice, beauty. I mean, go along with the neighborhood. We don't try to create a chaos. I understand that they're in disagreement because those guys have a party. And with and I was feeling like they felt me because it was a minority community, and I was like, that's why sometimes we are judged because other mistakes, and that's not fair. So since the first time that I was in this country, I was doing the right thing. Learn English, go for my residency, get my citizen, work hard, show my kids that if something happened in your life, you learn from that. And keep going. Show that you are better than them if somebody's trying to put you down. So,
do you have any problems with the condition that requires a bicycle pad?
no.
For others who wish to testify in support of this application? I have a representative of the neighborhood association. And now is the time for those who wish to testify in opposition.
My name is Brian Barker. I live at 5180 Boxhaven Court Southeast, directly across from the property we're discussing. Quick note to the planner is, I don't think that's correct square footage. It's not a 6,900 foot square house.
Yeah, I can double check.
It's a huge house. So anyway, so I am definitely against this. He's been running pretty much a de facto Airbnb since September. What had happened was in September, late September, we were noticing just a couple cars coming in for the weekend, leaving, and then another set of cars coming in for the weekend and leaving. I notified the city on September 26th. They turned it over to code enforcement on the 30th, because I said there was no permit. So September 30th, I talked to Roberto Magana. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Magana. And he said, no, there was none. He said, but I guess they were updating the software. And so he said it may be in the process. So I said, okay, fine. So Airbnb continued on. Then in the early morning hours of the 6th of December, I was woken up and there was lines of cars out in my cul-de-sac. Lines of cars. And then I looked over and they were having a party at 5180. There was people coming over that I don't know if they had put out an advertisement or something, because some people would go to the door, knock, and they wouldn't let them in, and they would just walk off. There's people drinking up and down the street, walking around drinking. A car pulled up in front of between mine and my neighbor's house, and someone's vomited in the street.
Time of day with this?
This would have been between 2:30 and 3:30 a.m. Probably went to about 4 a.m. So this is like early morning hours. So obviously I was very upset about this. Ours is a very quiet cul-de-sac. We know everybody. We've got all kinds of generations. We've got grandparents living there down to grandchildren, and all ages of kids. There's several kids actually that are out riding their bikes a lot. And there's traffic is always a concern in there because it's kind of tight because it's only a 50-foot roadway. And usually people park on both sides. So anyway, just December 6th, I confronted Mr. Bustamante about it because I was very upset. There was still garbage out in front of his house too that he hadn't picked up yet. At that point, I told him I've already reported you to the city. Supposed to have a permit, and so I then that next day I contacted Mr. Mangania again. I said, "Look, this guy, we had this big blowout. Does he have a permit or not?" Said. I said, "Well, here's the ad on Airbnb. We did a screenshot." He said, "Well, that's gone now." I said, "Okay." Well, kind of quieted down for a while, and then on the December 28th, we started. Before December 28th, a couple weekends, we kept on seeing cars come back. I discovered there was another Airbnb ad out. What had changed though is, I guess on Airbnb, there's two ways you can do. You can do a direct address or you can do an area. So this one was an area. So it didn't say exactly what the address was, but it was the same photos of the same house. So then on the 28th, I contacted Mr. Mangania via email and said, "Hey, he's got another ad up." So he said on the 5th of January, he actually went out there and had them remove that ad. The thing is, the ads that he has put up do not mention professionals. Both of them are spacious 4-bedroom, perfect for families and groups. And also after I had the unhappy interaction with them, it's still the same thing, spacious 4-bedroom, perfect for families and groups with under the new ad. He has had security cameras there since at least October, I know for a fact, because you can see them, there's a very large one. And with that party going on, with people walking up and down that driveway, it's not like it's not monitored at all. And I just think this is not a good fit for this neighborhood at all, because it's with Airbnb, it's kind of like you're just taking a shot in the dark. You may get a great guest, or you may get people throwing up in front of your house at 3 a.m. So, and that's obviously not the lifestyle people are in cul-de-sac. You have any questions of me? Okay, thank you.
My name is Dan Olson. I live at 5195 Box Haven Court. And I'm a little hard of hearing, so if somebody asks me a question and I ask you to repeat yourself, it's, sometimes I just can't hear clearly. I'm against this totally. I'm the one, I have a video of the activity that went on at 2:30 in the morning till 3:30 in the morning one night. Parking on the street has been constant. To show you exactly how this cul-de-sac is in our neighborhood, it's a very short street and it's very steep. When you come up to the cul-de-sac to turn around, you can't have a vehicle in the cul-de-sac. Our neighborhood is pretty tight. Yes, apparently I might park my car on the street while I'm shifting around or something, but if somebody's in the way, we call each other because we know each other. In a short-term rental, you can't do that. A fire truck cannot turn around in that cul-de-sac if there's somebody parked in the middle of it. But my biggest concern is the safety of the neighborhood. Fire trucks or any emergency vehicle getting through there. There are several of us on the neighborhood that have trailers. And when we need to pull into our driveways to park our trailers, we can't if there are vehicles parked on the street. The house, as we already said, I think it's a typo because it's not 6,900 feet.
Yeah, sorry, that was the lot size. That home is 1,000.
Yeah. So that's 7 people in that house is pretty tight if they have children too. But that's beyond my point. I don't care about that. It's the safety of the neighborhood that I'm concerned with. A short-term rental does not give anybody adequate time to screen for their backgrounds. If they're a sexual predator, we don't know. There are several children in our neighborhood. My children are all grown, gone. But I love seeing the kids in our neighborhood playing safely. And you can't screen on short-term rentals. By the time there's a problem at night, we can't call the police to have them burdened overnight. And we can't call the owner and have him take care of it because it's already happened. Long-term rental is a different story than a short-term. I am totally against any short-term rentals in our neighborhood, and it doesn't fit with the cul-de-sac. And they do park in the cul-de-sac. There is room in the parking lot for 2 cars. I've never seen anybody use the garage yet for parking, but they do use the street for parking. So anyway, I'm totally against it. Any questions?
Good evening. My name is Tiffany Underwood. I also live on
Say that again.
Tiffany Underwood, and I also live on Fox Haven Court Southeast. I am also here today in opposition to the request for the conditional use permit. So I know some of my neighbors have already spoken about their concerns. They're more direct witnesses to what they saw and heard on those nights. I can tell you that the noise that they were speaking of was loud enough that it was heard in my house as well. I'm one of the multi-generational families that live on the cul-de-sac. One of the reasons why I moved there is because it does have a strong sense of family and safety and security, which is very important to me and my family. I think just as I was getting ready for this, I was thinking, every time I turn the corner, I know in my head that there's very likely to be 1, if not 2, if not 4 children in that cul-de-sac. And so those of us who live there know that it's likely that the kids are going to be out in the street. And so we're looking out for them. So our street is a quiet, single family cul-de-sac. It has long-term residents, a high degree of privacy.
And the introduction of this short-term lodging is fundamentally incompatible with the established residential character that has developed over the years. Unlike a standard long-term rental, the short-term rentals introduce a revolving door of guests who lack a vested interest in the neighborhood's social fabric or security. I'll just also make one note. I know in the staff report, there was reference that there's a multi-unit residential area that's northeast of our neighborhood. I'd just like to point out that's a retirement home. They have a memory care center there, and it's older residents that live there. That's all the way on the other side of our neighborhood and not directly impacted. So from the notes that I took, it appears as if the applicant started posting on Airbnb sometime before September 25th, because that was the date that I texted my kids to let them know, hey, it looks like the place across the street's going to be an Airbnb. And frankly, at first I was a little kind of excited, maybe family could stay there. But what I've learned is that the applicant has been renting out the property without the required license. He didn't follow the rules that are set forth until he applied for the conditional use permit last month. So I know that others are going to speak more about the behaviors. I'm going to kind of get into the nitty gritty, the things that sort of irritate me. As I was looking through the applicant submitted materials, I see that he submitted a deed, which of course is required under the Salem Revised Code. But I'd just like for you to take note that that is the recorded deed that was recorded by the previous owner in May of 2015 when she purchased the property. So the property was sold in 2025, which is when applicant purchased it. There's a newer deed and mortgage that's filed for this address if you look at the Marion County records. But the applicant did not submit that deed for your consideration. So essentially, we have no legal proof of who is the owner and who is entitled to even seek this permit. Also, there is a notice requirement under SRC 300.620 sub B sub 3 requires the applicant to post a notice on the property, and that was done within the time frame. However, section SRC 300.620 sub B sub 3 sub large a sub I it goes on to state that the notice shall remain in place through the date of the public hearing. Another subsection of that same code indicates that the notice shall be posted on each street frontage of the subject property in a conspicuous place that is visible from the public right of way. And so initially the sign was posted, it was visible. I have photographs, and so I would request for the record to remain open for 7 days so I can submit those photographs. So today is Wednesday. By Friday of last week, the sign had started to fall over, and at this point it is bent and it's not entirely visible. So it's no longer published in a conspicuous location. I know that we've already heard about the physical constraints of the cul-de-sac that make it highly sensitive to increased trip generation. Transient guests, as we've heard, often bring multiple vehicles. The overflow parking and the narrow cul-de-sac restricts the turnaround area required for emergency vehicles and garbage trucks. Also, I've addressed pedestrian safety, as have my neighbors. It was in reviewing the staff report that I learned that the city does not require short-term rental properties to provide for a minimum amount of off-street parking. So directly in front of this residence, although there is a curb that would permit perhaps 2 vehicles to park there, that would be right on sort of that really curvy part of the cul-de-sac. There's no evidence, there's nothing before this hearings indicate that the garage is capable of holding 2 vehicles, that it's empty, that it's not full of property. I know that we've talked a little bit about security. I've heard, and you're going to hear additional testimony from my neighbors regarding actual security and safety risks and the noise that I know that we have discussed. So in essence, I realize a lot of what I'm talking about are sort of these nitpicky things, but what I'm hoping that it paints an overall picture of, because I heard the applicant when he said, I only live 15 minutes away. I have friends who are in the neighborhood who can come and check in on things. But he's known that this sign needs to be posted and it doesn't look great. There are times that there are, that the recycling is just sitting there and not taken down to the curb. There are, opportunities that he could have taken to make sure that he's following all the rules, and he hasn't. So the fact that these disturbances have occurred while the property was being used as a rental suggests that he's either unwilling or unable to manage the guest behavior effectively. And there's no evidence that the future impacts can be successfully minimized through these conditions of approval. So I'm urging you to deny the conditional use permit. He's not met his burden to show that the adverse impacts can be minimized. He's already demonstrated an inability to prevent noise nuisances, and because the commercial nature of the short-term rental is incompatible with the quiet, secluded nature of our cul-de-sac.
Scott and Jennifer Stair, and we live at
Could you spell your last name?
Stair, like a staircase. Yeah. We live at 5165. We adjoin, we have a, how do you say that? Our properties border each other, the applicant and ours. So we are in opposition of this being a short-term rental. The party was pretty disturbing and upsetting. It started earlier in the day. And I know that it started earlier in the day because from my back, I can see the back of the property. Because there's a deck, built a higher deck, and they had already started drinking well before dinner time. And the activity started with people parking and people coming and going, way past bedtime. And so we had empty beer bottles and such underneath of our vehicles the next morning. We've had the trash can for that property laying in our property for more than 24 hours before someone picked up the trash can and the trash that had fallen out of it from that property. And I am in opposition, or we are opposition also. The one time he had rented it out to, what were they? Big, large vehicles.
I believe they were doing optical cable
Optical.
installation.
Yeah, really, really large vehicles. And just parking there, utilizing that, huge trucks, pickup trucks as well, like extended cab. And that's concerning to me for the trash to be able to come around, let alone an ambulance or the fire department or anyone else who needs it. So, yeah.
That was a different occasion than the party.
Those were, yes, the large vehicles or the trash, those are all separate. That is not one day.
Okay, so you have a party, you have an occurrence where there's trash,
Where the whole trash can is just laying in my yard
okay?
with the trash out.
And then another occasion,
With, yes, that it was rented a couple of different times. I think it was maybe for the week period, maybe like a Monday through Friday type thing, maybe twice with these really large vehicles. The people that stayed in there didn't give us any issue, but the trucks were incredibly loud, coming and going, and just being able to get the medical if we needed it, the fire department, or just the trash guy. Sometimes just when there's no vehicles, he has to go up and jockey the vehicle around just to get up in that cul-de-sac because it's so tight and narrow.
how many vehicles are we talking about on that occasion?
On the occasion with the large trucks,
Yeah,
2 really large trucks and then a very large pickup truck. So there were 3, and they were all parked outside. Nothing would have parked in the garage.
they didn't use the driveway.
No,
They did
they did utilize the driveway as well as street parking.
for the pickup truck, yeah.
Mhm.
But in addition to the time of the party, on a different night, my adult daughter came home, parked her car, and there were unsavory people there. And I had to she called me and I had to go
From her
out,
Vehicle to come
out to,
outside.
out to the street for her to feel comfortable to come in.
This was a different
Just
occasion,
with a different occasion.
Another different occasion.
define unsavory.
Well, they were smoking weed as they were walking up the street. And
And you know they were associated with the Airbnb?
Well,
they went up there. We didn't see, they came back in the house. We didn't see them go into the home. But that has never occurred on our cul-de-sac.
right.
We don't have anybody, they don't live on the cul-de-sac, the people that we saw. So I won't say for sure that they did go into the Airbnb, but they went up there.
Okay,
No, that's it for us. Thank you.
And I live at 5160 Foxhaven. So I'm opposed to this. The noise has been disruptive on multiple occasions. There have been times it's woken me up. And there's also been times that it's just flat out startled me, sitting in my home in a very quiet neighborhood. And then there's suddenly noise coming from next door. And
what time generally did that?
it's happened at various times. Sometimes it has been at, 8 p.m., but sometimes it's been at 11 p.m. or in the case of the party, it was 2 a.m. The day after that largest party, I found beer cans under my car. And then on another occasion, I've also found like beer bottle can next to my car. So there's been several occasions where I found some sort of trash on either the lawn or on the street that has come from the property. I do think that there's a safety concern. It is, even tonight, it'll be dark when I get home. And sometimes I have to park at the end of this cul-de-sac and walk up to the house. And so one of the things I love about the neighborhood is that I know the people in the neighborhood. I know the vehicles to expect parked there, and I know whose house I'm walking past. And sometimes when you're arriving home at night and it's dark and there's suddenly a vehicle you've never seen and there's people you've never seen and they're maybe making a bunch of noise, it can be a little concerning from a safety perspective. Some of the others have mentioned about children on the street or how it's a tight turn. I think this neighborhood is somewhere that you kind of need to know the cul-de-sac if you're kind of be coming up and down it. Like some others had said, when you turn onto the cul-de-sac, you have to slow down extra because there's often children just right around the corner. And I think it is a safety concern that it's also a very steep hill. I know that when it gets to a certain temperature and it gets slick and it doesn't look as steep as it is sometimes, but you have to drive very carefully on the cul-de-sac, and I can easily see something happening, someone coming down the cul-de-sac not knowing that it's as slick as it is when it's so tight. End of my testimony.
When you've been disturbed by noise, it was on multiple occasions, not just that party. And the noise was after 10 o'clock or early in the morning?
Yes. Not often what I'd call early morning, unless you're talking about like 2, 3 a.m. sort of thing. Yes.
After 10 o'clock?
Between the hours of 10 and 4 typically.
About how many times did you experience that disruption?
About 5 times, separate occasions that I can more distinctly think with finding like some of the trash under my car that wasn't very hidden. It was, I walked out to my car and I saw it. Some of that was even after the owner had come out and, you know, to clean up the property after one of the renters had vacated. And it didn't seem very thorough to have missed trash that was right there on the street next to it.
Are there others who wish to testify in opposition? Anybody wish to testify but not be associated with being in favor of or in opposition to the application? Staff wish to add any additional?
Yeah, as I said earlier, that the square footage that I had, sorry,
Can I add something? Sorry.
We'll have to find all.
Yeah, you'll have, right after staff.
to clarify the square footage of the home, the square footage that I had shown was the square footage of the lot. The house is listed at 2,091.
1,091 square feet.
Yep.
Anything else, from staff? Okay, there's an opportunity for final rebuttal summary by the applicant. There has been a request that the record be held open. We'll talk about that.
For the record, my name is Maria Bustamante. I am his wife. Have a few points. We can provide the deed if it wasn't provided before, and I can assure you that we are the legal owners of the property.
I'm having trouble understanding you.
She said she could provide the deed, and we can confirm that with the assessor's records that they're the correct owner.
Okay.
Just have the correct deed. We can get that to add to the record.
Normally part of the completeness check.
I'm mistaken.
Okay,
Okay, the main issue that I heard is that one time that the renters had a party, and I truly apologize for that. I know that that can erase all the damage that caused to all the neighbors. And it also caused material damage to us that we had to pay because they destroyed some furniture. And because of that situation, we learned that we now need to screen to be very restricted to the request that we received in Airbnb to be able to approve or deny. And we haven't had that situation before, and we haven't had a situation similar to that in the past. And I can assure you that the neighborhood will be like pre-crime. I would love that because I also have kids, but that's something that is out of my hands. If we were to rent this house for a long-term rental, we still can assure anybody that it will be pre-crime or there will be no issues because they can have a baby crying at 2 a.m. because I have kids and I know that happen and that can happen more than one time per week. And there's no anything I can do, and I would feel like really, really bad if all my neighbors are not happy because my baby is crying. And there may be many other situations like now if we move, we are Mexicans, so that means that we can even have like anything because we know we are going to disturb all the neighbors. And I have a friend, she has to rent the house to their family. They are like 10 in total. She, her husband, her daughter, and her brother-in-law, plus 4 kids. They have like 4 cars or 5. Like we can do that. We can avoid all this process of short-term rental and avoid the payment that we already paid. And that will make like a difference. Like it will be even worse because they will be there every day and every time. And with Airbnb, with short-term rentals, sometimes there are like 2 weeks that nobody is there, so nobody is like bothering anybody. And I just have one more question for Brian.
Yep.
I understand that at the beginning, the issue was that we didn't have the permits. And then you reach out to the Officer
Magaña.
Magaña. And then now that we are trying to get the permits, now you have more concerns. Now, if we get approval for the permits, what is going to be next?
I'm not, I don't understand. Can I even answer or I need to be quiet?
Let's not have dialogue
Okay.
between.
Okay, that
Parties.
just needs to be in the record because I'm concerned that that weekend of the party, I was in the second floor. The windows were closed. I was using the vacuum and still I heard noises, like someone was yelling at Ivan. And then I opened the window and I was able to see how he was approaching to Ivan. He was yelling at him. He was demanding, like, when are you going to move? We are not happy and we are just letting you know. And it was a whole conversation and I was really intimidated. And I don't really feel comfortable with this type of altercations and I'm afraid of what is going to happen next.
Yeah, what I heard from all the testimonies. Because there have been so many instances when there's excessive noise and trash, and not just the party. The party, that can happen. But consistent problems with management. I think that's their concern. And you have a camera outside. Apparently the camera didn't help during the party and hasn't subsequently. You've had problems with when they've had problems. That's the concerns that I heard. Dead, not through yet. One type of condition that I can explore is making sure that all of the vehicles associated with a short-term rental are parked on the driveway or in the garage and not on the street. I don't know what staff's going to say about that, but I heard a lot of concern about parking on the safety concerns and I want you to know that.
Thank you.
Again, I'm sorry if I made something that I was giving you some troubles because of this. It was never my intention. So at the beginning,
Now,
when-
you need
Oh,
to trust me. They don't,
sorry,
they've
okay.
been given that.
So at the beginning, when I showed up to the neighborhood, I was trying to be friendly with everybody, trying to introduce myself, as always I do with everybody. So something that is ringing my bell a little bit is for the first speakers, the people who has more years living in the neighborhood, their main concern was a party. There was only one occasion until the last speaker. So then the garbage was on the same day of the party. For some reason, those guys throw it to the neighbor. So having a garbage being on the street for a few hours after the garbage truck is done, I don't think so. There is something wrong. In the meantime, it's recollected or put it back in the same day. So in the meantime, it's not affecting because most of the time the bin is on the driveway, not making obstructions for parking. So then when I become aware about the large utility trucks after talking with my neighbors, because they told me hey, are they yours or what? And no, they are not mine. But they expressed to me their concern and I addressed it. So it was not on time because I didn't have a communication with them at the time. So then I probably addressed after that and we never have any issue with that. So it wasn't a huge, large utility truck. It was a construction truck attached with a cable trailer behind. So then the other pickups were in the driveway. I have videos from the cameras. So then I was like, when I noticed that, I was talking to the company to tell like, hey, you cannot have this in the street because it's making concerns to my neighbors. The next time that they were there, it was only diesel trucks on the driveway, 2 diesel trucks, and I have the camera videos. So something that I know that I felt for the data of the party for the cameras, for some reason the setup it wasn't correctly adjusted. So after that fact, I learned more about the system. So I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not the best about technology. I'm trying just to learn and get more. So I was watching more YouTube videos, tutorials to understand more how the camera works. Right now, I know more, so that has more sensibility about everything, noises, big movements that is in my property. So I'm not trying to intend like to a point to other house. It's only in the driveways in the property limits. So then also have a bunch of proof, all the conversations that I can provide with the past guests. They were just family members. They were a group of people traveling like to know the beach, Silverton, because I have the conversations. I have the videos where they are parking in the garage. I have videos where they were parking in the driveway because they were asking me, hey, can I use the garage? Of course, you can do that. There is no remote, but you can use the garage. And then we can also add the conditions. But yeah, most of the time they were in there, and they were like in the same feedback, like the neighborhood is very peaceful. Nobody is actually bothering out. Everything's great. This is great. We would like to live here. And I have the text. I can provide to you like all these screenshots where like basically only one bad experience make all of this. And I understand. I understand if I have living in peace and somebody strange with different culture, different mindset comes to my neighborhood and do this, what is next? So you cannot pick your neighbor, but you can try to work along with a neighbor. I mean, again, I'm gonna be super picky about like who is actually coming to the house, who is like accepting all the rules beforehand, and then for sure encourage them like use the property for parking. Of course, if they are parking for 30 minutes in the side in the street because they are just dropping something and leaving, I don't see an issue. But in general, parking terms, I would like to have the people inside. So right now, I have a family living for 2 months. So Mr. Magaña told me like, that's okay, Ivan. So a family reached out to me because they have an incident with their house. The house was destroyed, but in the meantime, the insurance is paying for the house. They are staying with us. It's a family of 2 and I believe so 4 kids. And they have been there like in the house, not giving any issues whatsoever. I've been talking to them. I show up on Saturday morning to pick up the mail, to talk to them, to say, hey, because even though we are in communication by the app, so I will let you put a face on the conversation. And I was charging with the husband for like 30 minutes in front of the driveway. So because also I noticed through the camera the sign was sliding down because we have some storm daily. So even though you are putting back, since the ground is wet, it's not firm. So the sign that the city provided me is not like a really firm to keep it. So it was like sliding off. And I asked him, can you please just put it back? Of course. And I see how he was putting back, but later on the wind like a whoop again because it's like a borders with some like with ground. So but at this point, there is not too much traffic on the street, more likely the neighbors. At this point, everybody's aware about this. There is not like oh, I'm driving for a new street. What is that? I will let you go and do my testimony. So at this point, I think like it's absurd to say, well, the sign is a little down, but you know all the information. There is no new people that will be informed about this, or you'll not be a surprise that, oh, it's the house. So then, as I said, there is other houses in the surrounding neighborhood with Airbnbs with the same setup, where I get my learning about how to do this. And it's a clear statistics that this is not increasing the crime. This is not increasing something like because it's an Airbnb. So I don't want to be the stereotype because I'm Mexican, I'm going to be living there throwing parties and having a bunch of cars. I'm just trying to be a decent neighborhood, work along with them and making sure that I'm having used 5-star people from Airbnb who has a great check history. So that is my point.
This is probably not relevant, but did you rate the people at the party on the Airbnb website?
Yeah, it was something because even though, so when I become more aware about the something, is because the camera of the door, I was reviewing in the morning, like, I have people, I have some record from inside when they're opening, they were recording. So I guess it was like a night mood when they like stop sending notifications. That's why I learned, that's why I wasn't notified in the moment. So I have videos where like there are a group of people inside. It wasn't like a lot of people. It was a bunch of people. Sorry.
Okay.
So then when I went in the morning to confront them. I have to kick it them out because they were still inside, and they are the only guesses as today that they were carrying a speaker. I realized when I was kicking them out. Other than that, I have no speakers in the house. I have no stereos in the house. I have only TV or 2 TVs, or three normal TVs, and then I have nothing else to give them the opportunity to make more noise. So that is my biggest like a thing, because I work in the safety industry, and then I have to take beforehand something happen. With this experience, of course, I have to do better. So I have multiple experience in the house, and this is the only one that is giving me a headache that I have to learn how to avoid this. So obviously I have to work with Airbnb. They are not allowed to work with Airbnb anymore.
Let's talk about the open record if you're through with your rebuttal. So for a week, you have an opportunity, as well as any of the other individuals who spoke, to provide additional evidence, written evidence into the record. Then the following week, the parties can comment on the evidence that was placed into the record during the first week. And then the final week, you get a final summary rebuttal.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
So this will give you an opportunity to address all of the issues that have been raised with as much specificity as you can. Are there any questions?
Can
Staff,
you repeat the dates and time?
I didn't give the dates.
No, I can do it. So the first 7 days ends, and this is for both hearings. First 7 days ends March 4th at 5 PM. It has to be sent to city staff, so Caroline. The second 7 days is March 11th by 5 PM, and then your final rebuttal, is March 18th at 5 PM. And we'll forward all of that on to the hearings officer at each week.
So you have until next Wednesday to submit new evidence, new argument, as does everybody else. And then the following week, you can review what testimony came in and respond to it.
Mhm.
And then finally, the last week, which ends on the 18th, during that week, you can summarize your position and do final rebuttal with no new evidence, but just argument.
I'm sorry. What is rebuttal?
Have your say that. Have your say.
Rebuttal, speak back.
Yeah.
Like the same setup?
In writing.
In
Okay.
writing.
Everything's in writing.
Oh, okay.
Caroline can answer any questions as you go along. So you can call Caroline tomorrow. She can go over it all over again.
Okay.
Or, well,
I
Monday.
encourage you to work with staff if there's any clarification needed.
Okay.
Okay,
Do you want that in email or letter form?
either. Yeah, either.
if there's no further business for the hearings official, we are adjourned. Thank you for your testimony.
The Salem